Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. My name is Rob Morris, and I run the Customer Enablement team here at MediaValet. Now, if you're joining this session today, my guess is that you're either shopping around for a DAM and are considering your options, or maybe one day you're just quietly sitting at your desk and suddenly an email landed in your inbox and hey presto, you are now responsible for implementing a DAM for your company. Either way, the chances are this will be your first time and you're going to be figuring things out as you go along. Now, I know that can feel a little bit daunting, but it absolutely doesn't have to be. In my position, I've been lucky enough to guide hundreds of companies, big and small, through their DAM journey. And I've learned a lot along the way, lost a fair amount of hair too. So I'm hoping today that I can give you some practical tips and takeaways on what to watch for, what to avoid, and how to ensure you emerge triumphant and your colleagues greet you with applause and high fives every time you walk into a room. Okay, let's get started. Implementing a DAM is a lot like moving into a new home. I'm sure we've all done it once or twice in our lives. It requires planning. It's going to require lots of sorting and organizing. And you can pretty much bet there's going to be some arguments around what stays and what goes in the trash. So keep this analogy in mind as we go through these 6 lessons we're about to learn. It's going to pop up now and again. Okay, so on to lesson number 1. No one wants to find themselves on the morning they're moving into their new place, running around, throwing things into boxes. It's going to be super stressful and you're guaranteed you're going to break or lose something. So run your asset audit early. It sounds really boring, right? And that's why no one ever does it. It's everyone's least favorite task. And you're basically going to need to put aside a few hours, maybe actually more than a few hours. And you're going to really need to look in detail at what you have, what your team has, what your department has, and what your organization has. And I mean it, find out where your creatives are storing their files. How much do they have? 1 terabyte, 5 terabytes, 50 terabytes? Okay, how much do they actually need? And how about the marketing department? Where's their stuff? Dropbox, hard drives, SharePoint, someone's pen drive in their desk drawer? Start a spreadsheet and get a really good overview of what you have in terms of total storage and the types of files you have, and document that for each department. Now, why go to all this effort early on? It's going to save you money. I can't tell you how often I've seen clients purchase a huge package of storage from us, only to run an audit and realize after they strip out the old folders, the duplicate files, all the garbage files, that they only need half of the package they just bought. So going back to our house analogy, there's no point buying a 7,000 square foot mansion if it's just for you and your cat. And finally, put some rules in place around what you're going to move. It'll make all your subsequent decisions much, much easier. And the rules, they don't have to be complex. You could start with dates. All your content from the last few years is going to be super important. But how far back do you actually need to go? 2017, 2016? Figure out a date that works for you and build in a cutoff. It'll help a lot and it will make you much easier to agree early on in the process what's going to get moved over and what's going to stay behind. Okay, on to lesson number 2. Get the right people on your team. Don't try to go this one alone. Your DAM is going to have a really big impact on your organization. So make sure you get buy-in from everybody. The best way to do that is with good stakeholders. Pick some folks from different departments. They'll know their assets better than you will, and they'll help you understand their workflows and their users. More on that in just a minute. It's also a great way to get adoption. No one likes to be kept in the dark and then be told they're going to have to change their processes. So by bringing in stakeholders, you're giving up some control in exchange for their buy-in into your project and their adoption of the DAM within their department, which at the end of the day is all that really matters. The key to a successful DAM implementation is widespread adoption. So, build your dream team. Select people who really understand your organization and its processes. One interesting observation I have noted is that your stakeholders, they don't have to be big advocates for implementing a DAM. It can actually be useful to have the voices of the detractors in your steering group. Their opinions can be really insightful, and it'll help you address these challenges early on in the project. And the ultimate aim is to then turn these detractors into the biggest advocates for the DAM over time. But just one little word of warning on that. Keep your group small. You don't want a big 20-person steering committee. 4 or 5 people is ideal. Big enough to share the workload, open up a range of ideas and opinions, but not so large that every decision requires a big vote. Which takes us on to lesson number 3. Always consider your users first. I'm not actually sure how this one fits into my house moving analogy. So let's just say if you have little kids, maybe don't buy a houseboat. Anyway, think about your users more than your assets, essentially. You're not building a file storage system. You're building a system to help people do their jobs better. So start by thinking about them first, rather than by thinking about your files. So here are some good questions to get you thinking down that path. Who is going to be accessing your library? Is it just for internal folks, or will you allow people from the outside your organization to access it too? Why are they accessing your library? Is it to be able to store and back up their work? Or is it to gain access to those hard to find assets? Maybe it's to power your website. Figure out what each user needs for your DAM. What do they need? What do they need to do in your library? We don't want everybody having the same level of access. That could get chaotic. So think about what your users need to be able to do. Generally, most users just need to be able to search for things, download things, and distribute. But others might need to be able to upload or make edits or review things. And finally, and most importantly, how can we make our users' lives better? A new system's great, but only if it really makes people's lives easier. So ask them, find out how a DAM might help their workflow. If you can't find something, you're going to struggle with adoption. So spend some time here and find that aha feature that will make people want to use your system. It doesn't have to be huge. Small things that people do often can have a really big impact. So interview your users, talk to them, find out how they're using their assets. Ask them what their pain points are in their current process. You will be really surprised at the crazy workarounds that some people just live with in their day-to-day jobs. I'll give you a really good example. I was once working with a really large sports team. And during one of these user interviews, this poor marketing coordinator told us that when they received all the game shots from the photographers, they would go through the images and they would pick the best shots from the game and they would burn them onto a CD. The story is kind of showing its age a little bit here, I get that. But they would then take that CD and they would write something on it and they would pop it into their desk drawer. And then they go about their job doing their other things. Now, this would happen again and again. And once this drawer filled up with CDs, they would pull the drawer out, walk over to a closet, and basically just dump all the CDs into a box and close the door. Now, every once in a while, someone would call that guy up and say, hey, I'm looking for a shot or two from a specific game from last season. Can you find that for me? And the poor marketing guy would have to get up, go to this closet, and just spend hours digging through the boxes of CDs to find that particular game disc. Then they would load it up, find the image, email it to the requester, and so on and so forth. When we told him about the DAM and how these guys that are requesting all these images would just be able to jump into the DAM and find them for themselves within 20 minutes, you could just see this huge weight just lifting off his shoulders. Those are the people that you've got to find in your company. And once you've done all this investigation, make sure you write it all down. Document it on a spreadsheet, separate it out by the types of users, and this will be a guide to all your decisions. I guarantee you, it will influence almost every decision you make in your library. And having said that, on to lesson number 4. You won't get it right first time. Like picking a paint color for your new kitchen, you'll probably take a few goes just to get it just right, so fail fast. Don't get stuck for weeks trying to think of every possible scenario. 90% is close enough to get you started. You'll never think of every possible thing ahead of time, but so long as you give a lot of thought to your users and you've got a clear understanding of the assets in your library, you can fix things up as you go. I've seen many projects get delayed week after week, month after month, as large groups of people get together once a week, once every 2 weeks, and get stuck discussing the minutiae of some data field in the dam. It causes a loss of momentum, and it can really impact a successful outcome for your project. So set up regular touch points with your team, keep them close together to keep the momentum going. Dam projects are always competing with other seemingly more important or more pressing things on people's agenda. And the best way to keep people focused is to meet regularly and hold each team member accountable for their tasks. At each meeting, review what you've accomplished so far and where you are on the roadmap for completion. And if you see time slipping by, call it out early and take some steps to address the root cause of your slippage. And remember, it doesn't all have to roll out fully baked on day one. Which leads us on to lesson number 5. Don't be afraid to change things up a little bit. Unless you're a brand new startup, you will have some legacy system that you're moving your assets from. It might be as simple as a local drive or a server or some cloud storage system, but whatever it is, it'll have a structure to it, and not always a great one. Our systems for storing things evolve organically over the years. Staff come and go, and sometimes things are organized in a certain way just because it's the way we've always done it. Listen out for that phrase. It's a sure sign that there's some opportunities for improvements there. Implementing a new dam is a fresh start. It's an opportunity to examine your existing practices with an objective eye and see what can be improved. Remember that there's a reason why your company's decided to invest all this money in a new dam. Clearly, it wasn't easy to find your assets the way they were before. So don't just grab your old structure, dump it into your new dam and take the rest of the week off. Take this time, take this opportunity you have to think about how things should be organized and look at your user stories from lesson 3, figure out a structure that works for everybody, and then build from there. Which brings us on to our final lesson for today. Don't try to do everything at once. Implementing a large system can be a huge undertaking, and you might find it difficult to know where to start. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the thought of transitioning your entire organization over in one go, break it down. Try some initial departments to start with, or pick a certain set of users who will really benefit from the dam and set them up first. There's 3 big advantages to doing this. You'll be able to quickly demonstrate the value of your project. It helps to show that you're making progress, and it's going to start to spark interest within your organization. And then consider our previous lesson. You won't get it right first time. By rolling out in phases, you can tweak and change things as you go. So by the time you get to the last phase of your dam, it should be pretty much perfect. Also, be honest with yourself. Take the time to review each phase and honestly appraise your progress. Learn from your mistakes and move on. Early adopters. These guys who see the benefit of the dam will become your champions, and they're going to spread the word and help bring other departments into your dam usage. So remember, you don't have to hit the ground running with all these new features from day one. Start small, introduce your users gradually, and you're going to have a stress-free rollout. At MediaValet, we talk a lot to our customers about something we call the DAM maturity model. The theory here being that most organizations begin their journey on the left-hand side of the screen here, in a state with little to no structure for their organization's assets, no governance, no oversight. Moving to the next stage of compartmentalization brings some order to those assets, and it's usually the first big step in a successful DAM implementation. At this stage, assets are in a structured state, and users are able to easily find the assets they need. But as you can see, the journey continues on from there. As the DAM matures within the organization, we move on to a collaborative phase. And that's where the DAM becomes a centralized resource for your entire organization. And then finally moving into a connected phase where your DAM becomes the central source of truth for your whole technology stack. It touches every part of your company. Now, very few customers go from chaotic to connected in one single leap. So pace yourself, take a phased approach, and make sure you pick a DAM partner that's ready to guide you through each of these stages. Okay, so let's recap on what we've covered today. Run your asset audit early. Having a clear picture of what you have will help you in the buying process and also speed up your implementation of your DAM. Build a strong but reasonably sized project team. Shoot for 4 to 5 folks from different departments, and that'll help you make your decisions. Think about your users. Those guys should be the basis for all of your decisions. How can we make their lives better? And don't aim for perfection. 90% is good enough to get you started. Don't be afraid to change things up a little bit. Don't just go with the status quo. And finally, phase your rollout if you can. It will make the whole task seem a lot less daunting, and it will give you an opportunity to tidy things up as you go. So there you have it. That's my top 6 lessons that I've picked up over the years from implementing successful DAMs that have lasted time. If you keep these ideas in mind when you're implementing yours, you'll be well on your way to a successful and hopefully stress-free implementation.